Okay. So so let's see if people can hear us, and if they can somebody like say, yes, we can hear you, we are fine? Because for me, it's always a big issue if nobody's answering. So let us know, please, if you can hear us. Okay, I'm excited by nobody answering. Oh, we can hear you. Thank you.
So we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That was like an interaction at least. Okay, so it's perfect. Yeah, and we have some hello. So okay. So people are interacting and even then are listening to us. Okay. So would you like to start? Let's start. Let's go. Let me start by presenting.
Let's start.
Yeah, let me start by presenting SEOnerd. First of all, I need to say something. Today, Isaline will not be here because she was, sadly, she's sick. Nothing very bad. She will recover. And you will see her to the next event. Don't worry. But today, voila, you will be with us. That's all. So about the association, so Isaline and I open SEOnerd Switzerland because like, why we did it, because we loved working together. We were working in the same agency, and then she decided to open her own to go freelance and open her own company. And so I was like, oh my god, we find no place to speak about SEO in Switzerland, and at the same time I'm losing Isaline. Then so it didn't work for me, it didn't work for her either, because if not she wouldn't have opened it with me. And then we open our association, and we are so happy because we always have like brilliant speakers like Miracle. Can I say Miracle? Because it's very French for me. I can manage. For me, that is like, it's Miracle. Okay. So I try to train it to say it more English, but no, it doesn't work. And so
I prefer that.
it's perfect. Thank you so much. And so that is why we opened the association, and we are happy to share the knowledge and have our great speakers. So everything is always recorded on YouTube. You can find the record. We have like the caption. So then, I mean, I know then I have a strong accent, so at least you can understand what I'm saying. And apart that, I need to thank our sponsor, because obviously if we can do also that, it's because of our sponsor. So so they help us cover the cost of, for example, of Zoom, of the captions, and some other stuff regarding the association. So thank you, Pilea, and thank you, Lip. Okay, we did it. And what next? I will arrive also to you, don't worry. So next thing important is our next event. It will be another fantastic event. Some of you probably already have heard about this event. So it's about Ulrika, and she will speak about using search intent to understand your customer demand. Yeah, I can do it. To understand the customer demand. So that is another great event if you want to subscribe for next time. Explain. Okay, so now I should explain what will happen to this event. Sorry, but I did have to have a cheat sheet for that, as there is not Isaline. So, okay, what should I explain now? So there will be obviously Miracle speaking, and at the end you will have the question, you will have the time, and she will answer your questions. So you can ask your question in the Q&A or in the chat. Do it the way that you feel more comfortable, and I will manage to check both, and I'm sure that Miracle will help me. So anyway, we will manage to check both, don't worry. So that will be, so yes, so at least you can ask all your questions for this great event. So now finally, I can finally introduce our, yes, So okay, so what people don't know about you, I don't know, because almost everybody know you. I mean, yeah, you're a rock star in SEO, so can somebody not know you? No, but at least let me try. So she's a head of SEO at Erudite. So you are specialized in technical SEO. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I often hear you speak about data. So that means that you're very strong also in everything that is data strategy and this kind of thing. What you don't know probably, the first time that I saw you, it was at the Women in Tech SEO. And I was like, wow, because not only you were saying very clever thing, but on stage you were great. And I was laughing so much and I was like, wow. And then Isaline came in Jan and she told me, listen, Sarah, can we invite Miracle? And yes, she said Miracle too. And I was like, yes. So we were super excited and we are super excited to have you. Sadly, she can join. But so you did tons of events too. So I don't know. There is something that I can add about you that I didn't say. Go for it.
No,
It is all. I mean, you can brag. It's okay if you brag also.
Yeah. I don't want to set up the expectation too much, just in case.
Too late. I already did it.
So yeah, that yeah, so I've been in SEO and most of my presentations are very agency speak because I've worked all my career in agency. If anyone's looking for an in-house, wink, wink. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I've worked agency and most of my career has been agency. It doesn't mean that you can't take any of this because ROI, you often need to show ROI in-house because there's dev time that's been spent. There's a lot of things that's been done and everyone wants to know that whatever the SEO team is doing is actually working. But yeah, so I've spent 10 long years in this industry and yeah, I'm still hanging in there, still slugging on.
That is a good news for everybody, I would say.
Yeah, so shall I start?
Yeah, please. I will start speaking. Now you can start really your presentation.
Okay, so I hope everyone can see me and hear me okay. So yeah, as Sarah said, I will be talking about statistical forecasting for SEO. And as I've said, I come from an agency background, and every time we have to pitch, we often have clients, saying, because most of the time people will come to us, either they're firefighting, something's gone wrong, and then they're looking for someone to fix it. And they're just like, yeah, we need this thing fixed. And you're just like, and they often trying to fix the wrong thing. And we're like, there's loads of other things you can do. And they're like, why should we do it? They don't understand SEO, or they've just built a site and they're like, well, we've built this site, can you just SEO it? We'll give you the login to our CMS and that's it. And in order for us to get them to understand the benefits of SEO, in order for us to educate them, we often have to forecast. And of course, sometimes the client has been with you for a while, you have your client renewal calls, and then you have to tell them why it is beneficial to them to keep using your service. So the great thing about forecasting is that it creates expectation. Again, because people come to you with a checklist, they don't understand what SEO is, they don't understand what SEO is supposed to do. They just say something for Google, or we just need our site to comply. And they don't, it's not high list on the list of things that are important to the marketing team. SEO is never up there. And so everyone gets the big budget. And so if you want SEO to get a better budget, you need to create the right expectation, because SEO is just never there. And example, see the pandemic. When the pandemic happened and everyone started cutting marketing budget, freezing spend, SEO was always the first casualty in the marketing team. Again, we often have clients come to us or in-house marketing team say, well, we've been set this target for our marketing this year. We're supposed to achieve 20% year on year. And this is the path we've allocated to organic traffic. And you're like, yeah, but how? How did you come to this data? How did you arrive at this figure? How do you know that with the budget you've set for SEO can achieve that? Again, one of the things it challenges it, it changes it from like a to-do list of, oh, I need to fix broken links, do this, to like, oh, this can actually make a difference to the overall business goals. This can make a difference to the financial goal of the business, because once you start giving a monetary value to something, then you get the C-suites engaged. You know, you get them. No one, like when you start talking about rankings, people, even no SEO fully understands the depth of Google's algorithm. Now trying to explain that to someone who is not SEO inclined is like trying to explain to my mom what I do. I just do something, you know, to her, she tells me, oh, my computer's not working. And I'm just like, I can't, you know, that's not my job. You know, everyone just thinks you do something with hardware, software. It makes no difference to them. And so you can imagine how the CEO's eyes just glazes over when you start talking about, you know, rankings, algorithms, and things that no one actually cares about. So this is why we bring forecasting, because it just fixes everyone's eye on the price. It's not about getting the site in line with best practice. It's not about, oh, there's something Google requires of your site. It's about making money for the business. And that's why as SEO consultants, we have to be speak more like marketers. Our job is to bring more money to the site. Our job is to earn the business more revenue, leads. And so we need to make sure that we are putting that at the forefront of any kind of proposal that we're doing. So when do you need to do a forecast? As I've said before, contract renewals, it's a great time to bring a forecast before the client and say, this is why we're saying you should spend XYZ amount of money, because if you spend XYZ amount of money, we can achieve XYZ amount of profit for you. Again, when you're presenting your strategy, you're presenting something radical. You want your client to change their entire AI. You want them to build new pages. You want them to re-platform. You know, you're saying, and they're like, whoa, this is going to cost us a lot of money. Why should we do this? So one of saying, well, it's good for Google is not a very strong reason, but saying it can earn you, you know, this amount of money is a great reason for them to do it. And of course, if you work in an agency, client pitches is always a great way to be like, everyone else has said this is what they're going to do, but we have said we're going to do this, and this is the amount of money it's going to, and this is the amount of money that we're going to earn for your website. It's always a great way to lead any conversation. So now, forecasting, the kind of forecasting we do. And before I joined Erudite, I didn't used to do this kind of statistical forecasting. I used to do the traditional keyword-based forecasting, where you will get a list of keywords that you think your client will rank for, and then you get the organic click-through rate, and then you multiply that by search volume. You take the conversion rate, the average conversion rate on the site, the average search volume, and then you roll that out over 12 months, and then you get your forecast for the client based off a keyword list. And that's fine if you're just doing content work. You know, to an extent, it's okay. It's not robust enough, but it can pass if you're just focusing on, oh, they've asked me to create, you know, content for this landing page. These are the keywords the landing page is targeting. You can roll that out because it's very, 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 that task is very narrow. However, when you're doing things that have to do with that affect the entire website, things like speed, things like CTR that affects the entire website, that kind of keyword-based forecasting is just not holistic, because it's so difficult to predict keyword trends now. And one of the reasons why personalization, everybody tracks everyone. Like, yeah, the amount of our information that is online affects, you know, I was complaining the other day, you know, my husband lost his dad, and we were not even talking about it because none of the plans were being made here. But then as soon as I signed in, I was being tracked by funeral sites. Like, I was seeing the ads everywhere, and I was just like, what is this? I didn't even search for anything because I'm not the one planning the funeral. But then, yeah, personalization makes a big difference to the kind of results you get. The location makes a big difference to the kind of results you get. All of the tools that we use to track our clients' keywords, the location of the tool crawler as well, the IP address that's being used to ping the SERPs to get the data, affects the results you get. the searches language, privacy setting, are you logged in, are you logged out, all of these things. And so it's getting more and more and more difficult to do anything that is so narrowly based on a set of keyword lists. You can't predict all the long tail keywords that your client will rank for. You can accurately guess like the major generic keyword that one page will be ranking for, but there's so much long tail, there's so much, so it's really difficult to predict, the outcome based on a set of keyword lists. And that's why we use like linear regression and exponential smoothing. And the overall idea is just, and I'm not going to read this out because I've written a long blog post about this and you can read this later. It's just like the regression model, and this is not a new thing. Anyone who's done like economics or statistics, these are the kind of models they use to forecast. And it's just looking at different variables and saying how accurately can this variable predict the outcome of the next thing. And then we combine that with exponential smoothing. So that looks like, because there's always outliers in data. There might be a time when GA data is missing. There might be a time when there's like promotion, PPC promotion, and everything just spikes. There might be a time when there's a rogue crawler bot or something, or there's a campaign that gets a lot of sales. And so exponential smoothing now looks at all of those data and try to say, well, if this has occurred 6 times, it hasn't occurred now, this is an outlier. We need to feel a weighted average over this data to smoothen it out to make sure that there is no spike anywhere that isn't like a seasonal trend. And so together, these two things, they help you like determine the strength of your predictor. So how accurate is this data in predicting the next data? Again, it's very good for forecasting an effect, forecasting trends, forecasting seasonal data, and removing outliers. And that's why we use this method of forecasting over the other method. And again, as an agency, we do CRO, we do a lot of technical work. So we can't always rely on keyword as a means of forecasting because most of the work that we do affects the entire website. So what do you need for forecasting? To get statistical significance, we always advise to use at least 2 years of data. And if it's a new client and they don't have Google Analytics data, you can't use sales data. I prefer to use sales data if they will disclose that to you, because as we know, Google Analytics is not 100% accurate. It doesn't track everything. There's cookies. Again, it's a trend tool. So if you can't get that sales data that gives you the actual figures, that's great. And then some people forecast on Google impressions and clicks. I personally don't do that. I prefer to forecast on real analytics data, but you can forecast anything you want really with the tool. Again, if you have 2 years worth of data, you can forecast anything you want. And then simple Excel spreadsheet. This is actually really easy to do, really. And then you can train your data. So the data allows you to select the confidence interval, which says, how confident are you in the robustness of this data? Is this data clean? Am I sure the client's been tracking the right things? Are you sure that everything's been recorded? So you can select the confidence data. And what you can do is play with it. So what I try to do is, like, whenever I'm training my data, I take, like, if they have 2016, I take 2016 data and try to switch the confidence interval and see how close I can get to predicting 2017 data. So data that they actually have. And then I go and look at what metrics I've set that was able to predict 2017 data as accurate as possible. And then I replicate that in, predicting the future. And then you can select your seasonality. So is it that every 6 months there's a sale? You can select your seasonality or let it dictate it normally. So here you can put like 6 months, you can put 12 months, or you can say detect automatically. There's nothing if the business doesn't have like a seasonal trend of summer sales or winter sales or something like that. Again, you can tell it what you wanted to do with any kind of missing data. So for instance, you stop tracking 1 month and there's a loss of data, you can tell. And what it does is it either uses the previous month's data or it adds the first month and then the last month together and gets an average and uses that. And this is just a video I've made just to show you. So this is like 2019 and 2020 data, and it's organic sessions, and it's creating a forecast for 2021. And it's, as you can see, it's just highlight, again, select the confidence interval, select the seasonality, tell you what to do with missing points, and then create your forecast. And it's just using the forecast sheet in Excel, and it's that easy really. And it gives you 3 trends. It gives you like a lower confidence, an upper one, so you can select which one you think, you know, best mirrors. We normally plot 3 trend graphs, and I'll show you at the end, because yeah, nothing ever goes nothing ever goes as smoothly as you think it will. Yeah. And this is, and as simple as that looks, this is what like our forecasting looks like. Like you can make it as complicated as you want. You can forecast organic traffic, sessions, and then use that to predict revenue. And of course, once you get the organic sessions or the transactions, what you do is you go and you get the average conversion rate, or you can forecast your conversion rates as well. If you know that you're going to be doing continuous site improvements, you can forecast that. And then you take the average revenue from the site, average order value, and then you multiply that to get your predicted revenue. So the only thing we don't forecast here is the revenue, because you can forecast the sessions, you can forecast the transactions, you can forecast the conversion rate, and then you use that, multiply that by the average order value to get your revenue predictions. And so this is just for a client we've done, and we've done like, because their business is weather dependent, so we've done like a forecast for favorable weather, and that would be like the highest confidence interval. Forecast for favorable weather, that would be a lower confidence interval. So depending on what we feel, you know, if there's rain, then people wouldn't go to the business. And as you can see, we always have like a trend line that says, okay, we like to tell the client, if you do nothing, chances are that if the client has been in business for a while and they've been marketing, they've been promoting their site, if they do nothing, there will be a continuous growth, even if the growth will not be as fast as they want. But so we like to show them, or chances are that it will not. We let the data, we don't try to manipulate the data, we let the data speak and say, okay, the data predicts if you do nothing, this is how you'll continue to grow. However, if you use our service, again, we have like a cautious and moderate and optimistic. And then depending on the client, like with that client, it was weather dependent. With another client, it might be that, oh, your competitors have been aggressive this year. And we've seen online that they've been really, really aggressive. And so we feel like, you know, we should be cautious here in case they continue on that line. Or it might be that, oh, we're like, the client has come to us and say, oh, they're missing a developer, and so they might not be able to implement XYZ, but they're trying to make sure that they can get one on board. So we'll be like, okay, if we manage to do half of what you said, this is what we'll achieve. If we manage to do all of it, you know, in a timely fashion, because we all know that SEO is timely, you have to do it, and allow Google to crawl it, and then take effect in the SERP. What I didn't add here is that when you do this, in order to get your cautious and you're optimistic, when you do your normal forecasting with the forecast sheet, then you can say, okay, this is what, you know, we think you'll have. And then you can say, but if you use our service, and this is a tricky bit, I'm not going to lie, this bit is the tricky bit that, you know, depends on experience, and you have to research on your client's competitors before you say, we feel, and this is where experience comes into it, that you would have, going with our service, we can guarantee you, well, not guarantee, we can say we'll have like a 10% increase in your expected profit. And that's why we show the do nothing model. We say, okay, with the do nothing model, you will have had like 3 million. Using our service, we believe that with all the recommendations we are telling you to do, you can get a 10% increase. And be very careful when you do this part, because you need to look at what who their competitors are, how aggressive their competitors are being, you know, how much are they prepared to spend, what on the site can you actually fix, and what is totally out of your control, you know. and caveat that and tell the client, you have to do what we say you should do, in a timely manner. Just because you've hired an SEO agency doesn't mean your SEO is fixed. You actually have to implement what we say, and then your SEO is actually fixed. So that's the way we approach it. And using this model, we have a 5% error margin. And so now we have clients that come to us just because they're like, can you do us a forecast? Because we have a directors meeting and we want to, or can you also do it for our marketing team as well? Because we just want to check what we've done, things like that, because we have like a 5% error margin and we're super, super transparent with them about how we do it, why we do it, and we show them the do nothing model, and they can decide which one they want to take for themselves. And then we can say, and this way we can always track like, how close are we to the forecast? And you can adjust, like once you've built a relationship with your client that is transparent, anytime you have real data, you can add it and adjust the forecast model and be like, okay, this is where we are now. We said in 6 months we'll be here. What is happening? We've exceeded that. Maybe we increase the forecast. So whenever we have periodically, like every 3 months, when we have new data, we add it in just to make sure that the forecast model is right. And then calculating ROI. Again, this is not a new formula. You just say, how much is a client going to gain from using our service? Obviously, we said 10%. So 10%, if they were on their own 3 million minus the 10%, what does it cost times 100? And I think for an agency, it's easier for us to say what it costs because we know what the spend is. I think in-house, it might be a bit tricky. If they have external developers, then it's easy to just calculate, how much you paid your external developers. In-house, it might be really different because you can't just put your salary there and calculate how much the spend is on you because there are the external factors. So I appreciate that. So now that you've predicted all of these things, you told the client, this is what I can do for you. I think most important thing about a forecast is achieving that forecast. So forecasting is one thing, and telling the client that this is what we can do for you is one thing. Achieving that forecast is a totally different ballgame. And the first thing first, and I always say this, is how robust is the data informing the target? How robust is that GA data? When last did you do an audit? When last did you do an audit to check that what's organic traffic is being counted as organic traffic? When last did you check to see that there's no like spam bots that are just corrupting your data? So I put a link there to like a Google Analytics template that we do to say, first thing first, when we onboard a new client is to check their data. We always check, and except they've been with like a reputable agency, there's always something wrong. So I would always check the data to make sure that which is why if we can get sales data to do the forecast, brilliant, because sales data is always more robust than the GA data that we have access to. Again, align your strategy to the company direction. I can't stress this enough. I mean, so what? Oftentimes SEO is always like a tick list of best practice. Best practice might not always be best for your client. Think about where they're going. And it's not just when a client comes to you and say, oh, we want to do this, we want to gain more visibility. First thing is to sit down and ask them, where do you see yourself in the next 2 years? Where's the business going in the next 2 years? What is the direction? And think about the long-term goals, not just the initial growth, because that always helps in shaping the strategy and you're less firefighting. Imagine a client coming to meet you and like, we're about to build a new site and we want to make sure that you create a brief for our developers that ensures that the site is SEO friendly. And then you just go ahead and create that brief. And then 2 weeks later, when the site is live, they're like, okay, now we want to become an international site. And you're like, oh, well, this platform you've chosen doesn't allow for proper subfolders, and issues like that can come on. But if you are sure of where they're going in the next 2 or 3 years, you can think ahead and think about the longer term strategy and provide that real benefit for them from the start. Another thing, especially with agencies, that happens is that because you have so many pots that you're holding, you have a task list of what you're going to do for this client. You've done it, tick, 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 tick. Whew, June is over. I can rest. you created the report and the report says, you know, this is what happened, and you send it up, and then you forget that you ever did that thing. You just forget, and you forget that SEO is a long con. You have to, you know, it's a long game. You have to wait to see something, content you created now in 6 months, we're doing better. If you just reported on it this month, you're losing out on all that value that it's going to create, you know, 6 months down the line. So always check evergreen content like that. Always check tasks that you've done before. You know, we increased the speed. We did a technical fix to fix the speed of the site like 6 months ago, and the site speed jumped by that. And then keep checking it, and say, since then, revenue has increased by 10%, 20%. All of those things are SEO wins that you shouldn't forget to keep shouting about and then reporting on and then tracking, because that will all go back to showing how much you are achieving in your forecast. And I've just created like a Google Sheet. Again, this is a Google Sheet, which is just like how to look for monetary value in things. And because sometimes it's really hard to tie specific tasks to monetary values, but this just looks at how to, like, okay, you know, sitemap optimization and maintenance, you know, are all the URLs right? URLs that were not in the SEP, are they now in the SEP? How much is that page now generating in leads or conversions? And then that's something that you can report on. No, it's not always easy, and it doesn't always show in black and white what we want to, but then if you keep checking it, one of these might prove valuable. And why is it valuable to be able to understand to tie revenue back to task? Is because, again, if you don't achieve your forecast, if things don't go right, the client will always ask why. And in justifying why and getting them to push someone to get things done, it's always good to have like a revenue implication, to be like, well, this hasn't been done, we're losing XYZ amount of money. And in my experience, that always gets things moving, because the developers will not always have the same KPIs as you, and they're also busy firefighting. They want to make sure the site is still working, they want to make sure the checkout journey is still working. That's their top priority. So they don't understand why they should be fixing this thing when to them it's working. And so when there's a revenue implication from the CEO, where there's a revenue implication, the C-suite to be like, oh, now I want you to prioritize this. And of course, they can't ignore that. So it's always good to be able to give things a revenue implication. And yeah, so I've written a whole blog post about forecasting, because that's more in-depth than any presentation that I can do. And yeah, because sometimes, you know, you're not always able to articulate on any of these things, and writing and reading through and writing again is always the best ways to go about, yeah, expressing yourself. So I think it's more valuable for me to share this post than to share any slides that I've done on forecasting. So yeah, Sarah will be sharing all the links I've shared here so that everyone can access it and can read more. Yeah, so that's me. Now for your questions. Thank you.
First of all, it was excellent. I'm super excited, and you, with this presentation, you solve one of my problems. So I don't know, I will give obviously the priority to other people to ask questions. You know, during the presentation, you receive brown, yeah, during the presentation, because you receive, this is amazing. I mean, this is similar. Wait, again, this is amazing. Oh, exciting, etc., etc. So anyway, it is super. Does anybody have a question? If you don't do as usual in the last 5 minutes asking 10 questions. So if not, I will go for it. Okay. Yeah, apparently it was too clear for everybody. Just to me, then I have a question. So can I do it?
Yeah. And if it's a question based on forecasting, if it's just an SEO question in general, I'm happy to try.
No, don't worry. I will stick to the presentation. Wait, then I come to London to discuss about the rest. So no, so I saw the news, the interval confidence you say interval confidence in English?
The confidence interval,
yeah, there was something wrong in this sentence. Okay, of 95%. I imagine then you play on that, no?
Yeah, I don't always use 9, depending on the client.
Okay.
Especially if it's a new client that I am not sure of how clean their data is, I don't use 95%. However, I always try to like forecast on the previous year. So if I'm doing a forecast for 2021, let's say COVID didn't happen because COVID has thrown everything. So if I'm doing a forecast for 2022,
yes,
say COVID didn't happen, I will take 2020 data and then forecast it and switch the confidence interval to get as close as the actual 2021 data they have.
mm-hmm.
So that's how to train your data. So you take a previous year that's already happened, and then you try to play with it, try to change the metrics and see if you can get as close to a year, the data that they have live, and compare the output.
Yes,
so when you compare the output and it's very similar, then you can now use it to predict
the confidence interval is higher. Now I get it, because it's 95. I was like, okay, that is pretty confident. Okay, so anyway, now I understand. Okay, so thank you so much for the answer. Okay. So again, this is really like, yes, okay. So it comes, it starts coming. Wait. Okay, I'll do that. Oh, that was a long question. Let me go down. If I arrive, oops, no, okay. For lead generation client, how would you forecast the potential revenue generated? Would you get information from the sales team to get an idea on the average order? Example, the potential client is a manufacturer of pipes and can get an order for anything between 100 item and 5,000 item per order. That looks a very precise example to me.
That is very broad. That is very, so what did she say? What did the person say? Sorry, they said how much, what's the range of the
So the range was between 100 and 5,000. So
that's very broad. Finding an average between those figures is really difficult. But what it might be useful to do is to break it down into sections. So instead of forecasting for the whole site at one go, you can forecast for, based on the monetary value. So I'm sure the content, or I'm not sure, I think the others will be split. Different things will cost different things. So you might have to go more granular forecast, where you forecast on each section of or each type of product, and then roll that up to one, because getting an average between 100 and 5,000 there will be too much error of margin. There will be too much error. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know, is that clear? It makes sense? Okay.
Yeah.
How do you manage forecasting in different languages?
I think because the forecast is numbers.
So yeah.
So because it's numbers, I don't think it makes any difference if it's a different language, isn't it? Because it's numbers. You're forecasting numbers, so it should be fine.
So another question, as I told you, you need to start the question and then you have tons of people. You will not go away at 7 o'clock apparently. Okay, thanks Miracle. Okay, what if external factor has step effect on the reality that eventually skew the forecasting results? Like competitors, unavailable product, penalty, clothing, or it was a result of an online brand marketing.
So, and that's what we say. We say this, whatever we present a forecast to a client, we say this forecast is based on all things being equal. All things being equal as at when the forecast was made is based on all the information you have given us now, which is that you're going to launch this brand now, this product is going to launch at a time, you're going to implement our SEO recommendations at XYZ time, and that's what this forecast is based on. If all of these things are not done, this forecast will not be achieved. And so you need to make it explicitly clear that this is dependent on this. this is dependent on this. This is dependent on your PPC spend continuing at this rate, because we know that when PPC spend goes up, organic click goes down. So you need to make all of those things clear to the client. And that's why we always say we revisit this every quarter. Every quarter, we revisit it with the live data to see if it's still achievable. If the live data is tracking up, then we know it's achievable. If the live data is not tracking, then something's happened. What's happened? Was the product launch delayed? Was something? And then we reforecast. So you need to make it super clear to the client, like everything SEO, this is the moving document. This is the moving, the strategy is, is moving, is agile, because we need to take into consideration what is happening and what hasn't happened at all times.
Okay, I hope then that was clear. Anyway, it was for me. So another question, how can I forecast for a new business who don't have a website yet and are new to SEO?
So you can forecast based on like search volumes, and then in the blog post I wrote, you can use a tool, Advanced Web Rankings. Advanced Web Rankings, they track a lot of click-through rates. So they track a lot of click-through rates across different industries, and they split it by brand and non-brand. And there you can use, so again, this would be a loose forecast. You can say, okay, search volumes, and then you might not have to integrate like keyword ranking positions into that one, because it would be really difficult if they don't have any GA data, they don't have any sales data, they don't have anything to go on by. So you might want to use like, that might be a time to go back to using things like keywords, keyword data, and using, search volume data, and then saying, okay, if you're in this ranking position based on advanced web rankings, you get this click-through rate, this click-through, and this is the amount you're proposing that you will sell your product on average, and use that keyword forecasting method, because it's really difficult if they don't have any data to forecast using this statistical model. So that might be a good time to go back to, and I might even add this if I do another presentation on forecasting on that. This would be tricky for clients that have nothing. So you might want to go back to using the keyword method for that one.
Yeah, so thanks. So it was a good answer. So does somebody else have a question? No? 10, 9, come on, this is your last chance. No, it looks okay. Seriously, your presentation, it was excellent. I mean, it was a difficult subject from my point of view, and you were really able to make it like very clear. So that was like excellent. And for the, no, obviously, it came up. How can we sum up forecasting into a process from analysis to execution?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Okay, I will try it again. How can we sum up forecasting into a process from analysis to execution? How can we sum up forecasting in the process from analysis to execution? Maybe somebody can help me. Maybe you want to clarify the question.
I don't know. Because it says, how can we summarize it from analysis to execution? And I think, from my understanding, I talked about like, making sure that your strategy is tied into what the business is trying to achieve, and always looking at whatever you're trying to do, this strategy that I've put forward, this tactics that I'm using for this client, will it make the boat go faster? For example, I recently looked at a client that had a WordPress blog. Now, I proposed that they do some speed optimization, but I tested a few things like enabling caching. I tried to optimize the images, and nothing was working. So we're like, well, okay, this website as it is so old. The code base is so old. Nothing, you're going to spend a lot of money looking through the code and going line by line. The kind of visitors that come to this site does the speed, this current speed, now obviously speed matters, but does the current speed matter to them? What are they looking for? And will they go elsewhere? And because it's a religious organization, it didn't really matter. So he's looking at things. So the money was best spent elsewhere in optimizing their local search, because people were more likely to visit them locally and call for information rather than go on the site. Right? So it's looking at things like that. What is going to make the most value and the most impact from your client from a business perspective, and not just what is best practice? Because now everyone is talking about speed, or vitals, blah, blah. It's easy to get swept in and forget that what is this client trying to achieve? And that's not to say all these things are not impossible, but what will get the most ROI for your client, and what kind of consumer do they have, and what is that consumer's expectation? What makes that consumer convert? And that's what you should always be thinking about.
Okay, so apparently you got the question and you answered the question. So, okay, yes, he's happy. So there was a thank. So apparently you answered perfectly to the question. So another question, and then probably we will let you go. Well, now that speed is being discussed, how much do you look into web performance? And if you do, what do you look at specifically? Okay.
Oh God, web performance is the top thing, because that's something that will have an effect on the entire site and every channel. It's so important for conversions, especially on e-commerce sites. So the first thing to do, especially if it's an e-commerce site, is images. And one of the reasons why I say images, because images is something that, if they don't have developer time, it's something that you can do on your own. Like, you can use automated tools to like resize images and then just say, here's a bunch of images, can you please upload them? You know, here's a bunch of images, can you please upload them, you know, back into the CMS? Or if you have access, again, talking agency speak, because the kind of size of clients we work with, we don't normally go into the CMS, but there are things you can. So first of all, the quick wins. And I know that whenever you use all the tools, they always throw up all of these JavaScript issues, but JavaScript and any code-based issues is not an easy fix. And you will get a lot of pushback if it's not their normal, you know, site maintenance cycle. So I would say, first of all, always go after the quick wins. Things like third-party tools, like third-party apps, third-party codes. That's always like a pain, because you can't optimize the actual code. So one of the things that we always look to do is, what can we move to GTM? And then you can create a tag in GTM that says only load this after the page is fully loaded. So you might not be able to move everything, but you can move some of the things, especially things like chat box. You know, look at don't get me started. And again, I think one of the things that SEO can learn from the CRO team is like using things like Hotjar to see, is the customer actually engaging with all of these things that are on the page? You know, the page is this long, you know, the page is this long, and then you have this chat box, and everyone feels it's super important. And then you take some Hotjar recordings, and no one's actually interacting with it. No one's actually clicking on it. Or they pull onto product pages like all of this long list of products that everyone's advertising, and they want to put like 10 products in the reel, and no one ever scrolls down to that part of the page. So it's just things like that that have like real user impact that you should be checking for first, because it's really interesting to be like, oh, there's loads of JavaScript that you can, you know, but then 90% of the time, that would just get you the biggest pushback, and they'll just be like, oh, this is going to take us like 20 hours to fix this code, and this is not our usual maintenance cycle, and it will get pushback. So just focus on quick wins like that. Things like, how many fonts are being loaded on the page? And one of the things that we started doing as an agency is like, when we, especially with our accessibility audits, and you should totally have my colleague Jess on here, because she does an amazing presentation on accessibility, is like trying to define like the online brand guidelines. Because you see that, you know, to a naked eye, these two colors are the same. But to a crawler, they're two different things that needs to be loaded. And then you see like a page is calling like 14 different colors that are blue, and all of them are marked important. And you're just like,
this is blue. We would be happy to have your colleague then, because accessibility is obviously something we love. So yes, for the next year.
And it's like 13 different fonts are being, it's all well and good for styling, but and none of them are being hosted on the client's domain. So these are all different handshakes that have to happen for all of these things to be loaded. So it's just quick ticket items like that can be quickly tweaked, or telling the client, well, this fonts you can buy it, or things like jQuery files, especially when there was like the cookie update. Loads of people were loading like using third-party apps for jQuery, and instead of using like one central jQuery or using the jQuery file that Google hosts, they were just loading multiple jQuery files. So things like that can be easily tweaked should be looked at before we start looking at the almighty code base, But those would be the things that would be the most savings. But then I will always say prioritize quick wins, and then push and push and push to get all of that JavaScript issues. Oh, and then things like caching, enabling caching, the longest caching policies ever, enabling all of those things. Those are things that will move the needle quickly.
That's just quite a complete answer, and I love it. So I don't know if somebody else have another question before we finally let her go. Okay, so I will start the final sentence and the final thank you. Are you sure that there will not be another question coming up now? Okay, let's do it. We can do it. Okay, so I'm scared to start. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much. So as you saw, it was like people are passionate about this subject. As I learned so much from you, I'm sure that other people did too. I hope then we will have you again, maybe next year. It would be great. And maybe with your colleague, you come together. We will have a party all together. And I don't know what to say, except then really you make it like this complex subject, you make it as easy as possible. And I will share the slide. I discover a problem in what's the name of this platform? Meetup, yes. Good to remember the name. Because apparently I can't attach. So I will discuss with Miracle if we can do it in a different way, because I can add attachment. If not, I will send you my email address, write me directly on my work email address, and I will send you the slide then, or something like this. We will figure out how to do it without having a link, probably. Okay, so apart from that, there is something that you want to say, Miracle, just like to complete?
Oh no, thank you everyone for coming. I'm happy to share the slides, but I think you're better off reading the blog post, because the blog post is more comprehensive. It goes through like the training data, explains everyone. And of course, things like this might look super easy until you start doing it. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Mira_Inam, and I'm happy to, until you start playing with it, you don't understand, then you start to see errors, and then you need help, just let me know if you need any help. And thank you so much for coming.
So just a second, I will put your Twitter handle like this. They can join you directly. Just give me a second. You know, when Iselin, she's there, she's more prepared than I am on this kind of thing, and she's faster. She's a machine. I'm missing you, Iselin. So, okay, so this, if you want to follow her on Twitter and probably ask some question, apparently, so you're free. And yes, the blog post, that is something then for sure I will add in the email, then I will send to the community. I am also very happy that you wrote a blog post on that, like this, it will go more in deep. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And see you soon then. Bye. Bye, Miracle. Thank you. Oh, wait, you want to have the thank you? Take your thank you, no? Yeah, they are so deserved. Epic presentation. Oh, that one, I never saw it. Epic presentation probably is the best compliment that you can have. Okay. Okay, now let's go now. Thank you so much. I will let you go back to your kids. Ciao, Rada.
Thank you. Cheers.
Ciao,
Bye.
ciao, Miracle.